All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride-in on this Thursday morning. From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center, several accidents to report. One at Blythewood Road and I-77, another one at Clemson Road and Farrow Road, another one at 21 and I-77, Universal Drive at Garner's Ferry, and one more at Longtown Road and Clemson Road. Today, cloudy with a high of 74. Tomorrow, cloudy with a high of 78. Some chance for showers, but high of 80 for Saturday for game day here in Columbia. That's your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on The Game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you here, getting you closer to the weekend. Jack, I won't lie to you. I thought today was the day where you weren't going to be in studio.
It's okay, because I just got... So, typically when I'm not in studio, which happens every now and then, he'll send me a StreamYard link to join. And you just sent me one like 5 minutes ago. I'm like, wait, what? So, I thought I had told you I was going to be in person today.
You did, and you said you were leaving for West Virginia after the show. And
yes,
I woke up this morning thinking it was Friday anyway.
It's okay.
So because we were switching out here, I told Jen to do something in there to set the camera up a certain way when it's only me here in studio. And then she's like, well, Jack's here. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
It does feel like Friday, though.
A little bit.
Yeah, we'll use that StreamYard link tomorrow, so you will not see me here.
It has been kind of a weird week in terms of like how we've reacted to things. Because look, Monday, as always, we react to the game and we're angry or upset when you have a loss, especially one like Carolina had. But what happened on Saturday has lingered more this week than it typically does. And when you have a historic loss like that, and it ends your bowl eligibility, it stings for a little bit longer. And it's kind of molded into a discussion about where this program is at as a whole. Because, again, now that you're not going to go bowling, we've already kind of got one eye towards 2026 already.
Yeah, you're right about it lingering a bit. I think we are kind of at that point now where it's like, all right, we've talked about it nonstop for 3 days. We had the whole week, the day after, to kind of process it on Sunday too. I mean, look, everyone's frustrated. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it is what it is. You blew that lead, and the worst thing you can do now is just continue to dwell on it when you still got games to play. Look, your season's ruined. Like you're not going to a bowl game. It's been a disappointing year. We all know that at this point.
Yep.
But there's nothing you can do about it now, right? You can't go back, change the past. You can only move forward, and you got Coastal coming up, and then you got Clemson coming up after that. So you just got to make the most of it. Try to finish 5-7, go into the offseason on a high note, and then there will be lots of discussion to be had about what South Carolina is going to do heading into 2026.
And we're going to learn from all indications pretty quickly who the OC is going to be. Conversations being had, all that kind of stuff. And ideally, you'd like to have that hire done before early signing day, which comes up pretty darn quickly after the season ends. So you're only giving yourself a couple-day window there. So that should happen pretty quickly. So guys that are signing here as offensive players know who's going to be calling plays for them, which is ideal, and obviously need all that worked out, as well as all of your hires worked out before the portal opens up in early January. Again, only one portal window open this year. No December window and April window. It's only one window for 10 days for most programs in January, and there's an extension for programs that continue on and play in the semifinals and national championship. So you got to figure all that out immediately after the season ends, and then just start building on what next year's roster is going to look like.
Yeah, you're right. And I know everyone's ready for this offseason to get here, but I'm still excited to see what South Carolina does. Not really this week. I mean, this weekend's whatever. Like, I think South Carolina should win. Should win. We say should win around here, and it ends up being a complete backfire. But next week, like, I know everyone's down about this rivalry next week and how these two teams stink this year, but I'm honestly excited. Like, you know, it's going to be the Thanksgiving weekend is always fun in college football. It's rivalry weekend, and
Sure.
this rivalry is still very tense. I mean, you're coming off the best game, I think, in the rivalry's history last year with just a classic top 15 matchup, low-scoring affair that ends in a game-winning touchdown and game-winning interception to win that game for South Carolina. And, you know, Carolina's going to be trying to go for their first win at home in this rivalry since, gosh, what, like 2013? I mean,
yeah, I believe so.
Like, the home team hasn't won in this game since 18. So there's still a lot to play for at the end of the year. Like Shane Beamer and the players have said, they're playing for pride and trying to win, quote-unquote, a state championship here.
And I think, you know, no matter what happens this weekend against Coastal, which I really hope you win, and we'll get into them more here in a second. I think for the Clemson game, despite the fact this season has been a failure, let's call it what it is, you can put blinders on for about 3.5 hours next Saturday and focus solely on, hey, there's a rival, let's beat them. And if you beat them, no matter how pretty or ugly it ends up being, you can be like, hey, we at least beat Clemson, and that'll make you happy for a day. And, hey, if you work with somebody that's a Clemson fan, you can at least, you know, continue to rib them for another year of, hey, we beat you guys once again. So there's that. But it doesn't change the perception of the season, doesn't change how you feel about the season. Now, it can make you feel worse if you lose these next two games, especially if, you know, you lose this weekend to Coastal. But at least for a few hours next Saturday, you can hopefully block out what's happened up to that point and just focus on the task at hand of beating a rival.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a nice way to go into the offseason there. And, you know, I think I'm also excited to see what's next for this offense under Mike Furry, because he did a pretty good job in that first half against Texas A&M, and we also heard from him for the first time yesterday. Very impressed, to say the least, with what he had to say.
We'll get into what he had to say in just a second, but first it is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for the Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
Oh, it is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. Yes, indeed, Mike Furry did speak to the media yesterday for the first time as an offensive coordinator / play caller, whatever you want to call him. And he discussed from this weekend what changes, if anything, have been made to the offensive playbook.
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, with such limited time, it's hard to just take everything out and redo everything. You know, so we really haven't taken out and added a lot. You know, we've tried to just kind of just do what we've done, but yet maybe kind of put some wrinkles on it a little bit to simplify some things, taking out some things to kind of protect us in areas that we need to be protected. And so, and then, you know, obviously we all have some ideas and we all game plan week in and week out. So there's always going to be new things that you add based upon situational things. But so we'll continue to do that. And we did that last week. But just doing an overhaul of the whole thing it was completely impossible right now to do that. So we're just trying to do what's best for our players.
And that's kind of as expected. We talked about that going into the game last weekend, that, you know, even with a bye week, you can't really change a whole lot of things within the playbook. Maybe you swap a few plays in and out here, but mostly you're still running the same offense you've run this entire year. I will say, at least in the first half, it looked like you ran it more effectively than Shula to run it. Obviously, the second half is a different story, and I thought he was very honest about the accountability of what happened in that second half and things he would have liked to have done differently or things that could have been better. And I do feel like, and this, I'm not trying to pile on Shula because he's gone now, But I felt like even in games that were obviously really, really bad, Shula didn't have the same kind of accountability when we heard from him.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, yeah, there was it was a complete 180 with the way Mike Furry talked yesterday compared to Mike Shula. I mean, no disrespect to Mike Shula, but he would give you a whole lot of nothing when it came to just a lot of mumbo jumbo words, right? Just nothing. Word salad, I think, is the best way to put it. And then you have Mike Furry out here talking about, I got a bit too aggressive there in the second half, which, hey, got to respect it, right? Because, you got all these people criticizing South Carolina for getting conservative in the second half. And, the more you think about it, like, if they got conservative, I think they would have kicked a field goal, right, on 4th and 1. Right? I mean, don't you want South Carolina to go for it on 4th and 1? It's just, I think they just didn't run the right play there. I don't know why you don't put the ball in Lenore Sellers' hands there. I don't know why it's happened a few times this year where they just have not used Lenore more on those like 4th and 1, 4th and 2 type of runs. I think it happened against Alabama or Oklahoma, one of those games too, where it's just like, what are you doing? So, look, I appreciate the honesty. It was a really good press conference yesterday. I'll say this. I think Furry is doing a very good job. And, I did ask him yesterday, what would it mean to you to become the full-time OC? And that's something he's not really focused on right now. Like, when that time comes and if he gets the opportunity, I'm sure he'll definitely, want to take it. But he's definitely impressing me so far with what the offense did in that first half on Saturday, and then just the way he handles himself and the energy he brings and the way he answers questions in press conferences. Like he would make a good coordinator if given the opportunity, I think.
I don't think you're wrong, but I also think that I don't think Shane Beamer can take the risk
Definitely
of
not.
staying in-house a second time. And look, we when we talked about it when it happened last year when Shula was named the OC, it made a lot of sense from a continuity standpoint.
Totally.
The guy's resume was good, but it clearly didn't work. And for now, a situation where Beamer's aware he's essentially coaching for his job if next season doesn't go well, I think you can't risk making the safe in-house hire again with only a 3-game sample size where at least for 2 quarters of that 3-game sample size, it went really, really poorly. I just don't think, no matter how many points they score this weekend against Coastal and no matter what they do against Clemson next weekend, I just don't think that's the direction they're going to go. I think you have to go outside and bring in somebody totally different, college offense, quarterback developer, all those kind of things that we've harped on as important for the next OC.
Yeah, no, you're right. And just because I say he's, I think he's doing a good job as the interim coordinator, I'm not saying he's going to be the coordinator or should be the coordinator. I just think he's done a solid job with what he's had to work with so far. And it would be one thing, I think, if Beamer wasn't in the position that he is, to where you're right, Tyler, like he's got to get this hire right. And if not, I don't know what happens from there. Like if this thing goes south quickly next season, we're going to be talking about probably moving on, maybe. I mean, we'll see where South Carolina's at with that. But I would definitely say, like, Furry's doing the best he can with what he's got. But, I think it would be crazy kind of for Beamer to go down that route again, knowing what happened last year. You got to go outside the box, I think, on this one.
Well, going back to Beamer calling a shot the other day where he said 1 year from today, that being Tuesday, when the, I guess, 3rd edition of the College Football Playoff Top 25 rankings come out, Carolina's going to be in there. They're going to be in the college football playoff mix. And if that's true, then yes, absolutely, Beamer's job is safe. And we're talking about him returning in 2027 and beyond and all that kind of stuff. If you're sitting in this exact same spot next year where you're 3-7 going into your 11th game, knowing you're not going to be making a bowl game, if he's not already gone, we're talking about him being gone.
Yeah, I mean, Shane's typically not gotten off to quick starts in his tenure at South Carolina, so he's got to figure that out next year in addition to everything else going on.
So what do we need to know about the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers coming here this weekend? Jack talked with Brandon Dunn of ABC Myrtle Beach the other day for Gamecock Central. We'll hear a little bit of what he has to say about this weekend's opponents coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Thursday on the Game. All right, here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. We are officially in the holiday season, and the season of giving starts with getting. Starting on November 24th, that's next week, Twin Peaks launches their holiday bonus card event where you can buy a gift card for someone on your list, and they'll hook you up with the bonus cards just for you because giving feels great, but getting rewarded for it feels even better. You can share the gift of crave-worthy food, ice-cold 29-degree draft beers, and good times at Twin Peaks, and treat yourself while you're at it. Bonus cards are redeemable January 1st through the 31st, 2026 at participating locations. We got a full weekend of football on tap as well as basketball, hockey, whatever your sports preference are, and you know you got to get down to Twin Peaks and check it all out. Food, TVs as far as the eye can see, and of course those 29-degree draft beers. All this and more with our friends over at Twin Peaks. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher along with you here on your Thursday on the game. Tonight, got Carolina Calls with Coach Beamer and Todd Ellis coming up at 7 o'clock, which will lead into Thursday Night Football between the Bills and the Texans, which coverage begins at 8 o'clock for the 8:15 kick there. And on Carolina Calls will be your last chance to hear from Coach Beamer ahead of Saturday's matchup against Coastal Carolina. But, Jack, you've already gotten a little bit of insight into the Chanticleers ahead of this weekend's matchup. You talked to Brandon Dunn of ABC Myrtle Beach a little bit earlier on this week.
Yeah, I did. And shout out to my guy, Mike Uva, for helping me get that all situated, because there's as I learned from Brandon, there's not much of a beat at Coastal Carolina for football. And Brandon's one of the few guys that is been at all these games this year, home and away. So This guy knows the team inside and out and provided some real good insight into what this team could look like for this weekend.
By the way, this is the Mike Uva Bowl this weekend for those that have forgotten that he is now working for Coastal.
Some have said it is the Uva Veltri Bowl game this weekend, pitting us up against each other.
Okay, just like when the Yankees and the Red Sox play.
Yeah, pretty much. So
now, is he going to dog you if Coastal wins?
See, that's the thing, though, because this is not the Mike Uva we all know and love. It's like Bizarro.
Well, he's the enemy this weekend.
Yeah, it's Bizarro Uva. That's the thing, because he's corporate Mike now.
That's right.
He can't be, fun, goofy Mike, at least on Twitter.
I've seen him still take a shot or two at Clemson.
Still, every now and then. Now and then. But he's got to be subtle about it.
That's true. Yeah, so. he's got a different kind of job now where that stuff isn't as accepted, I guess. So
I have made the joke, though. What are the odds if Coastal wins this game? What are the odds him and Chance Miller just get carried off the field?
Oh, man.
Like some Rudy type stuff this weekend.
By the way, Chance Miller's going to be joining myself and Bill Gunner today at 1:15
let's
on
go.
the halftime show. So, yes, a lot of baked-in stories for the team out on the coast there in terms of what's going on this weekend. But go back to your conversation with Brandon Dunn of ABC Myrtle Beach. I thought you asked him a pretty point-blank question of, hey, does he think that Coastal has a chance? And here's what he said.
It's funny you asked that, because I've had a couple of people ask me that question too, and we've had this conversation. And I think a lot of it depends on what South Carolina team shows up. Is it one that's ticked off because of what happened last week? Or is it one that's throwing in the towel because of what happened last week? I think if South Carolina comes out and plays lackluster because they're not playing for anything at this point in the season, because they can't go to a bowl game, they can't do anything, they're just trying to play out the season. Obviously, they want to beat Clemson. Maybe they're looking past Coastal into Clemson, coming off that disheartening loss to Texas A&M. I think you would give Coastal a chance because they have nothing to lose. They're going to a bowl game. They can't play for a division championship. That's out the window after their loss last week. So you would think, okay, yeah, Coastal has a chance if that's the South Carolina team that steps on the field Saturday. If it's a South Carolina team that steps on the field and is ticked off and wants to prove that last week was, okay, that's unacceptable, that's not Gamecock football, we're going to come in and we're going to show you, we're going to take it on Coastal, then they have no chance. Again, it just goes back to, what are we going to get from South Carolina? What Gamecock team is going to show up?
And that answer makes a lot of sense. And we'll get into the South Carolina aspect of this coming up in a moment. But that's what's always interesting about playing these in-state schools is we always kind of deem it to be like, well, this is that team's Super Bowl, right? Because when you look at that roster, there's a lot of kids from the state or from surrounding areas that probably had aspirations to play in the SEC, probably had aspirations to play at a place like South Carolina that may have gotten overlooked. Maybe they didn't get offered scholarships. Maybe they didn't get checked out at those kind of camps that they may want to go out there and prove something. And also in today's world of college football where roster movement is so fluid, I mean, we saw from Jared Brown. We got him from Coastal Carolina. If you go out there and ball out this weekend, you could find yourself on this very roster next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great – that's the harsh reality of college football is that when you're at these group of 5 schools and you do well, I mean, it's great for the athletes because they get plucked away and they go to the bigger schools, but it's unfortunate for – like a school like Coastal Carolina because they're trying to compete, they're trying to win a Sun Belt championship, and when your top players get taken away every year, but that's the natural path of progression, right?
Yep.
And Brandon gave me an interest, or not. Well, no, I take that back. I've been listening to a lot of Coastal stuff recently.
Yep.
Tim Beck, the head coach of Coastal, spoke to the media yesterday, and one of the final questions was, do you have somebody to prepare for Lenore Sellers? Meaning, like, do you have somebody that could run your scout team to mimic Sellers? And he kind of put it quite frankly, like, he's got one guy that could do it, but it's like he's had to get involved doing it. Like they don't have the same resources as a big school like South Carolina, and that's why Coastal's going to get paid handsomely to come in here and play this game. But I do think Brandon is right about one thing, though. If South Carolina doesn't show up on Saturday ready to roll, this Coastal team can definitely beat you, because don't mess around with these Sun Belt schools. Like, we've seen them before go out here and pull off some real nice upsets.
So one thing to know about Coastal revolves around their quarterback situation. Is they've rotated through a couple different guys this season, but Samari Collier had kind of established himself as their main quarterback. He was the team's second leading rusher. This team runs the ball extremely well, 24th in the nation in rush yards per game. He got hurt last weekend against Georgia Southern, knee injury. They're not even sure if he's going to come back to close out the year against James Madison coming up next weekend. So they're going to go back to Tad Hudson, who started sometimes this year, not great numbers. And here's a name you haven't heard in a while probably, MJ Morris. Do you remember MJ Morris and his little saga from a couple years ago?
He does sound familiar. So he was at
NC State.
NC State, yeah, and then he played for Maryland.
Well, he's the one that really kind of popularized the self-shirting thing a little bit, because he started he played 4 games at Coastal back in 2023, and he was okay. He wasn't setting the world on fire, but he went to Dave Doran and said, I want to redshirt myself before the 5th game, because he believed his value of the NIL component for the next season wasn't worth burning his red shirt. Now, he initially said that he was going to stick at NC State. I think nobody believed that. He ends up transferring to Maryland, does pretty bad there, and now is at Coastal Carolina. And I don't know how much he's gotten in NIL, but I imagine it's probably not a ton down there at Coastal Carolina. So he's kind of fallen out of the spotlight, so to speak. But yes, he was one of those ones that kind of sparked this self-shirting trend that we've seen the past couple of years.
Yeah, he hasn't played since October 18th.
He started the first couple games, and it was bad.
Yeah.
It was not good.
And I don't know if we have the cut of what Brandon had to say about just the offense in general and how they operate without Samari Collier, but it's definitely a stark contrast when it comes to Tad Hudson for sure.
And they have a decent running back in Javon Simpkins. It's good numbers. I know Brandon mentioned that, if he's got holes to run through, then he'll be all right. Carolina has been able to affect the run game at times this year, so that may not necessarily be the case for Simpkins coming up on Saturday. They spread the ball around pretty good on offense. A lot of guys that catch passes and in that wide receiver room. But I just, without Collier, I don't know how potent this offense can be.
Because the other thing that Collier adds that Tad Hudson doesn't is that running ability. So you try to keep Hudson in the pocket in this game, maybe get him on the run on me a little bit in this game, but you're really trying to swallow him up and make some, have him make some tough throws in this one.
We'll get some more insight into Coastal coming up at the 10 o'clock hour when Wes Mitchell jumps on with us, as we'll be talking to Joe Cashon, who's the former Coastal Carolina play-by-play man and now the host of the Strut podcast with Joe Cashon that covers all things Chanticleer athletics. But coming up next, we'll dive back into kind of what Brandon talked about there of what version of South Carolina are we going to see, and re-examine Coach Beamer's history with quote-unquote lesser opponents. That's coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Thursday on The Game.
Yeah, the mindset of something like that would always be hard. It doesn't matter what your record is. Anytime you're beating a team like that and the team comes back, that's a tough pill to swallow, knowing that you had them. But I got a tremendous amount of respect for Shane, and he's going to have his guys ready to play. It's their last home game. It's senior day. It's opportunity for them. They have us this week, Clemson next week, to, I'm sure, building up the battle of South Carolina and trying to own the state, and trying to find ways to motivate the guys to go out there and play. You got some guys that are going to play their last couple of games in the uniform. So I expect everything, right? I expect those guys to. We've been practicing. Every fake, every trick play. They're gonna bring out all the stops.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher with you on your Thursday here on the game. That was the voice of Tim Beck, head coach of Coastal Carolina, talking about what he expects to see out of South Carolina this week off the heels of, again, the historic collapse they had in the second half last week against the number 3 team in the country in Texas A&M. And that also goes back to what you were talking about with Brandon Dunn for Gamecock Central. And, hey, there's a part of you that can believe that South Carolina is going to come out here fired up and motivated to shut people up that have been mocking them all week for what happened this past Saturday in College Station. There's also a part of you that can believe that it's a classic example of letting a team beat you twice, that loss was so devastating. You come out not focused, sleepy, sloppy, and a team like Coastal comes in here and beats you again.
It's interesting because we've seen South Carolina typically play very motivated under Shane Beamer, regardless of the circumstances. I think he's going to have the guys ready to go this weekend, but we've also seen this team kind of sleepwalk through some of these games against lower opponents. Remember the SC State game earlier this year? That was kind of a snoozer at times, where South Carolina just didn't have anything going offensively in the first half, and then they scored a little bit in that second half, but it wasn't like they won 38-10, but it didn't really feel like that. We kind of saw this last year where I think it was Wofford that they played early on in that first half, just kind of not doing much in that game. So we've kind of seen both ends of it, of where, okay, South Carolina, when they're motivated, they're going to play pretty well. But when it's even when they're playing good football, it's like they kind of sleepwalk through some of these games against teams. I don't know if it's like they underestimate them or whatever, but Coastal's kind of like that good in between of, okay, they're not a Power 4 team, but they're not an FCS team anymore. They're right in that middle as a group of 5 school. That is a pretty good one this year. They've scored a lot of points these last 4 games, putting up about 40 points a game. So South Carolina really is going to have to come out here and play some good football on Saturday.
What is your, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your level of concern right now as we sit here on Thursday?
Just about this game?
Yeah. What is your level of concern that Carolina could lose?
A 3. I don't think Carolina is going to lose this game. There's a reason why the spread is what it is. I'll tell you this. If they play like the team from the first half against A&M the whole game, they'll win this game no problem. They will probably win this game 50-7. That is the ceiling here. And look, I know Coastal's been pretty good lately. I know they just are coming off a really heartbreaking loss, but they've been playing a lot better football since the beginning of the year. And it is important to note that against Virginia and against East Carolina, they were dominated in non-conference play. Just did not stand a chance. So that is what South Carolina should do this weekend. But should and will do are 2 different things. And you're right. The mindset has to be, you have to flush that A&M game, and hopefully they've already done that and are ready to go for this weekend.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm probably about a 4 in terms of things. Look, nothing's impossible in college football, as we've talked about so many times, especially in a season like this where there's so much parity across the sport. So I can't firmly say, yeah, just on paper, Carolina's so much better than them. There's no way they can lose this game. There's always a way that they could lose it. And you're right. Beamer's always had his team fired up, motivated. Now, they've always been playing for something, and this is the first ever game they go into without having some kind of postseason on the line or knowing that they're going to be playing in. So where's your motivation factor for that? What is the lingering effects of having the loss to A&M? That's something that you're going to think about for a long time to come as players, coaches, and does that distract you at all from your preparation this weekend? Is there a increased level of confidence knowing that they're going to be without their best quarterback? You know what I mean? Like can you get overconfident in this game? All those kind of things come into my mind when I think about how this game could play out. Again, on paper, I look at it and see Carolina as a much better team, but nothing's impossible. But if they go out there and, like you said, play like they did in that first half against A&M, they shouldn't have a problem here. But, and I think this is where the concern for a lot of the fans comes in is if Coastal hangs around and makes this close. We always see this with upsets, right? The longer it takes to put that other team away, the more confidence they get and the less confidence that you have where, hey, if this game's one score in the fourth quarter, it could go either way.
The best way Brandon put it to me was that if this is a 7-7, 7-0 game after like the first quarter, like if Coastal looks like they're in it after the first quarter, they're going to have a chance. Like they're going to be motivated. They're going to be like, okay, we've gotten through that first quarter. Let's go out here and really put on a good show and show what we can do against this team. Because here's the thing. Coastal has nothing to lose in this game.
Yep.
They're out of the race in the Sun Belt. They'll face James Madison next week, but JMU is likely going to the Sun Belt Championship since Coastal kind of ruined their chance with a loss last week. So they're not really having much to play for this weekend. They're getting paid to be there. Like I said, I mean, this is a great opportunity for Coastal to go out here and just throw everything at the wall and see what happens, right? Upsets do happen from time to time in these types of games, but it is more so about, it's not so much what Coastal does. It could be, but I think it is really what is South Carolina going to do? How are they going to play coming off one of the more heartbreaking losses you'll ever see for the Gamecocks?
And as you pointed out a moment ago, there is a track record here with Beamer and struggling against these kind of opponents. I'll give them a pass in year number one. You played tight games against East Carolina and Troy. There wasn't a lot of expectations for that team. I'm not going to hold that against you, but you get into, year number two, and you were down by 2 points in the third quarter to Georgia State. You won that game 34-14, but still a lot of uncomfortableness even in the second half of that game. We all remember Jacksonville State back in 2023, and if Stone Blanton is a step behind where he was when he picked off that ball, Jacksonville State scores a touchdown, and they probably win that game here late in the season, and that would have eliminated you from bowl eligibility before you even got to the Clemson game there. Last year, Old Dominion, how could we forget?
Old Dominion too.
Season opener where we looked around at each other like, is this team going to win like 3 games this year? Now, obviously, they got better as the season went along, but still not a great game there. You didn't take the lead until midway through the fourth quarter and needed a Jalen Kilgore interception to seal it. And then this year against SC State, I mean, you're down 3-0 in the second quarter before Vakari Swain turns it on with those punt returns and gives you a little bit of breathing room, and then your offense finally woke up in the second half. So this isn't just an anomaly. This is something that Beamer teams have done just about every single year up to this point.
You're right. And, I mean, even going back a few years ago, they didn't really play great against Georgia State when Sean Elliott was the head coach back in 2022. So, I remember Beamer's first year. I was at the second game of the tenure when they needed a walk-off field goal to beat East Carolina in 2021. So this team has definitely shown that they're not always on their A game in these types of games where they should win comfortably. So you hope it's not that way on Saturday, because then it's going to be like, we're going to have to really, really lock in for this game then, and we're going to have a lot more to talk about on Monday. Let's have a nice, positive, for the time being, Reaction Monday on Monday, then get ready to go for Clemson here.
All I want is a Reaction Monday for the first time in 2 months where we talk about a win. That's just
true. It's been too long.
And at this point, no matter how you win, a win is a win. You'll take it.
Yeah.
It's been since Kentucky at the end of September. It's been that long.
But now, man, they need to play well in this game for sure.
Yeah, we'll see what happens again. We'll get more insight on Coastal coming up at top 10 o'clock hour with Joe Cashon of the Strut Podcast, a former play-by-play man for Coastal Athletics. We'll come back, wrap up the hour. Some interesting news in terms of locations football is going to be played in the future for one team on a permanent home basis and 2 teams leaving the country. Oh boy, here we go again. That's coming up next as a wrap-up hour number 1. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Thursday on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry wrapping up the hour here on your Thursday on the game. He's always watching. He's always listening. Mike Uva has been tuned in to our conversations about Coastal in this very hour, and he has informed us they do have an opportunity to improve where they can go bowling with wins not only this weekend, but obviously next weekend against JMU that could get them to hypothetically as good as 8-4.
Wow, glad we have Einstein watching, and thanks for the tip, Yuva. Appreciate it, letting us know that Coastal could go to a better bowl game with wins. I mean, that's how it works, if I'm not mistaken.
By the way, they are projected for the 68 Ventures Bowl in Mobile right now. I'm just looking at the ESPN Bowl projections. One matchup would have them taking on Pete Limbo's Buffalo Bulls.
Ooh, and by the way, what did Buffalo do? I was watching the beginning of that game last night. Let's see. What did Buffalo do last night? They lost 37-20 to Miami, Ohio.
So they were down, I believe, 17-3. They came back, took the lead, and then Miami kind of turned it on in the second half.
Gosh, I love action football, though.
I do, too.
On the weekdays.
But, like, Pete Limbo just looks like the kind of coach that should be coaching in a cold weather place.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know how to describe that. He just looks like a guy that handles the cold really well.
No. And also, there's something about Buffalo still having a track around its field.
Yes.
I think I saw something like a month or two ago. They got to be like the only school left in FBS with a track still around their stadium.
Yeah, I can't really think of anybody else.
Like FCS, you'll probably see a few, but FBS,
unless I don't know, like maybe Missouri State or Delaware who just joined, maybe they still have one. Don't quote me on that.
No.
But yeah, that's not something that's very prevalent
anymore.
By the way, Pete Limbo's team must win next weekend against Ohio to get themselves to 6-6 to make a bowl game, and Ohio is one of the best teams in the MAC this year.
All right, we'll be rooting very, very hard for the Bulls to
That's right.
get to a bowl game this year. Get to go to the Bahamas Bowl, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe the 68 Ventures Bowl.
Speaking of bowls or venues where bowls are being played, it's been reported this week that UCLA might be looking to leave the historic Rose Bowl to play home games at SoFi Stadium where the Chargers and Rams play. Boo.
So,
boo.
My thought on it is you're already in so the Rose Bowl holds what, over 100,000 people, right?
I don't think it holds 100,000. Let me see.
Maybe not 100.
It holds
a lot of people.
It holds exactly. Oh, well, its record attendance was 106. Its capacity is 89.
Okay. Point is, UCLA never fills that place up, right? So it makes sense from that standpoint. It's nowhere near campus at UCLA. It's in Pasadena. But here's the thing. You go to SoFi, and I don't know exactly where it is in proximity to UCLA's campus. But
it's in Inglewood, so it's at least in a different part of the city.
But I can imagine it's still a trek to get out there. And also, you're playing in a NFL stadium, like you're not going to be able to fill that up. It would be great if UCLA had their own stadium that holds 45, 50,000 and they could fill it up and it's on campus. That would be great. But I just don't see that ever really happening. So I don't know. I guess this is okay, but I would rather just see them continue to play at the Rose Bowl. I don't know.
So SoFi Stadium is 11 miles from UCLA's campus. The Rose Bowl is, I'm waiting for my thing to update here. Good live radio. It's farther. It is 30 miles.
Yeah, that's a trek for a college campus.
But like, here's the thing. Is that 20 miles going to make that much of a difference of how many people attend your games or not?
Probably not. I mean, UCLA is not the main school out there in LA. I mean, it's Southern Cal, and they don't. And here's the comparison. Southern Cal, I mean, they play at the Coliseum. That's a massive stadium.
Sure.
I don't know what it holds exactly, but it's definitely probably 75, 80,000 seats.
Yeah, it's up there.
They may have some empty seats, but they don't really struggle as much as UCLA does to fill it up, hence why they still play there. So I get it from UCLA's standpoint of they want to move and play somewhere else, but they're going to a similar situation essentially where it's still far away and they're not going to be able to fill up what is an NFL stadium.
Last scheduling note here. This is being reported by Pack Pride that NC State and Virginia are going to be playing a game in Brazil
Despise
in
it.
2026. What?
Despise it.
What are we doing here? Why?
Why? Money. And don't give me the experience crap. That is definitely not what this is about. If you're a football player going over to Brazil to play in that game, or anywhere for that matter overseas, you're going to play the football game. You're not worrying about the being a tourist essentially. Like, it's just I don't understand the benefit of it for the teams because it's a hassle, it seems like.
No offense to these schools, but is NC State and Virginia, is that an enticing matchup that generates that much interest?
It'll count as an ACC game.
It will this time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, for one, keep it in America. Keep it in home venues for two.
Yeah.
And just play games in college venues. Stop playing in the NFL stadiums.
No, the big schools are never going to play in these types of games. Hence why you see these schools play there.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll talk to Joe Cashon about Coastal Carolina coming up next. Start off hour number 2. It is the Extra Point on your Thursday on the Game. It's all right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. You always need to be on the lookout for things around your home that don't look right. Those things include cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors or windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you notice any of these issues with your home, you could have serious foundation problems, and that's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. If you go online to schedule an appointment at cantyconvicts.com, they'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed right so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. You don't want foundation issues plaguing the home that you and your family love so much. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantyconvicts.com. Let the professionals at Canty Foundation Specialist help you out with your foundation needs. All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's our head, Jack Veltri. Wes Mitchell jumping in here with us now as we roll along here on your Thursday and get you set for South Carolina taking on Coastal Carolina coming up Saturday over at Williams-Brice Stadium. Kickoff at 4:15. Things get started early Saturday morning at 11 a.m. with Gamecocks Game Day with myself and Elijah Campbell, is always live from Jay's Corner, getting you set for the matchup coming up on Saturday, as South Carolina unfortunately not playing for bowl eligibility anymore. But as we talked about in the last hour, Wes, Mike Uva did inform Jack Veltri and myself that Coastal is still playing to improve on where they sit as far as bowls go and trying to improve on their current projection of the 68 Ventures Bowl.
So y'all had a Mike Uva sighting? Is
well,
that
he's listening, and he texted us because he heard.
He's always watching.
Jack took, I guess, a shot at them, saying
I did not take a shot at them.
He said they didn't have anything to improve on in terms of what they're playing for, and he was like, no, they still have other bowl games they could go to if they continue to win.
Spoken like a true corporate suit SID.
It's who he is now.
Jack there.
That's his job. That's his job. We'll get more insight into Coastal Carolina now. Joining us now on the AAA Heating and Air phone line, a former play-by-play man for Coastal Carolina, now host of the Strut podcast. It's Joe Cashon. Joe, first of all, appreciate you taking your time. How are we doing this morning?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. Looking forward to the matchup coming up on Saturday. 6-4 right now for Coastal Carolina. Obviously, a huge matchup in the Sun Belt next weekend, taking on a very good James Madison team. What's your assessment of what you've seen out of the team so far this year?
Wow, this has been an up and down, crazy roller coaster year. If you'd watched Coastal in the first 3 or 4 games, there's no way you'd think that right now that team would be sitting at 6 wins. I mean, the offense was just horrific in the first couple of ball games, one of the worst, and maybe if not the worst in all of college football, quite frankly. But then a guy came along, a kid by the name of Samari Collier, and things kind of took off in the ULM game, and all of a sudden the offense started moving the ball. Coastal started rushing the ball very effectively, picked up some wins, and now Coastal sits at 6-4 like you guys are talking about. But unfortunately, the bad news is Collier is out for at least this game, we think, and probably the next game next week against JMU, and hopefully maybe getting back for a bowl game. But, I mean, it's just been a crazy, wild roller coaster type of year, and hopefully the Chanticleers can find some magic at Williams-Brice on Saturday and close the regular season in style next week against JMU. So it's been really kind of a tale of 2 seasons, quite frankly.
Hey, Joe, it's Jack Veltri here. Appreciate you joining us. You mentioned Samari Collier. This offense really seemed to be humming and playing really efficient football, scoring a lot of points when he's in there. He has that dynamic of running the football that they just didn't have before he was the starter. Now they're going with Tad Hudson. What do you expect this offense? How much different do you expect this offense to look with Samari no longer, under center?
It won't be as explosive in terms of being able to run the ball because, Tad did a pretty good job, all things considered, coming in against Georgia Southern the other night. I mean, Coastal got off to a good start in the first quarter, and Samari Collier was a huge part of Coastal being able to run the ball effectively like they were able to do for about 4 or 5 games. I mean, the Chanticleers went for more than 200 in 5 of 6 games in that stretch, and a lot of it was because of him. Now, Tad Hudson can't run the ball like that. That's just not what he's going to do. Okay, he's not going to pull it and go like Samari Collier can. But Tad Hudson came in the other night against Georgia Southern, had 1 interception, which led to points. But other than that, protected the ball fairly well. So what he's going to have to do in this game is do the same thing, like protect the ball. Hopefully, Coastal can get the running game going with an offensive line that kind of seems to have gelled as we've gone through this season. Good slew of running backs to hand the ball off to, but Hudson's going to be more of a, kind of a pocket kind of guy, right? I mean, he's not going to pull it and go and get 20, 30, 40 yards like Samari Collier could. So we'll see. I mean, Tad did a good job, like I said, in the game the other night, and some games he started this year. He had a shaky game against East Carolina, but looked pretty good against South Alabama. So, we'll see. I mean, hopefully he can continue the momentum I think he may have developed at the end of the last 3 quarters he had to play against Georgia Southern.
Hey, Joe, it's Wes. Good to talk to you again, man. For those who don't know, I was on Joe's podcast last night. So if y'all want some more, in-depth stuff on what's going on at Coastal, y'all go check that out if you're listening. But, Joe, other than the improved QB play, what were some other things you've maybe just noticed about this team the last, month or two, just in terms of improvements? It seems like they obviously kind of rallied around Collier, but I imagine there are some other things that have shown improvement as well. What else has maybe just stuck out to you a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about, the running game got a whole lot better, and not just necessarily with Collier. Javen Simpkins leads the Chanticleers in rushing. He has really come on as an effective running back, as has Dominic Nicely. Those guys are not the biggest guys, but they have quickness. They've got speed. They can break one at any time. Javon Edwards has done a good job running the ball as well. Outside, I mean, they've got some playmakers, and Robbie Washington and Bryson Graves does a nice job. Jamison Tucker just had a 100-yard receiving game the other night, so he's done well on the outside. Defensively, Coastal got better in that winning streak because they were able to figure out how to get people off the field. The numbers aren't great this season on Coastal defense if you look at them. I mean, Chanticleers are 124th in total defense in the country. Right, but I mean, in games like Appalachian State and Marshall and Georgia State, they were able to string together stops, which wasn't maybe necessarily happening early. They were able to string together some stops. Did it against South Alabama too, right? I mean, the name of the game is people are going to move the ball, but you got to be able to stop some people when you have to do it. And the defense really did that in the winning streak. Now, yeah, the other night against Georgia Southern, that just didn't happen. I mean, and that's probably, as I'm looking at it, is my biggest concern going into this game. Can Coastal stop South Carolina? Because they couldn't stop Georgia Southern at all, period. I mean, 653 yards of total offense for the Eagles. I mean, that isn't going to win you anything. A lot of big plays in that game Coastal's defense gave up. So hopefully the Shans can figure out that defensive formula that allowed them to get stops during the winning streak, and we'll see that again Saturday.
Again, talking to Joe Cashon of the Strut Podcast and former play-by-play man for Coastal Carolina as well. And you're right, when you look at the overall metrics of their defense, not a lot of numbers to stick out in terms of positives, but one that is takeaways. 15th in the nation nationally when it comes to takeaways on the season, 8 fumbles and 10 interceptions gained. So that is one thing. They do seem to be very opportunistic when it comes to taking the ball away.
They really have, and if you look at that number, it is remarkable. It is remarkable where it is now as opposed to early in the season. Coastal was last in the country at one point this season in turnover margin. It was crazy. In the first 2 or 3 ball games where Coastal just struggled mightily on offense, I mean, the turnovers were just, I mean, it was a plethora of them. week after week. The Shants turned it over, had a hard time forcing them themselves. But, again, when you start to win, when you start to string together some victories, a lot of times you look at that turnover margin and you're winning that column, right? And so, like you just pointed out, the Shants have done a tremendous job lately of being able to force turnovers and get back to even now. I mean, I would never have thought that to begin the season. I mean, it's even Steven. When it was, I mean, we were minus whatever it was. I can't even remember what it was. It was so bad. But, I mean, the Shants have done a good job during the winning streak of being able to force turnovers and, in turn, get people off the field and, in turn, give ourselves scoring opportunities as well.
Joe, what kind of chance do you think Coastal has in this game? I mean, they're a big underdog, but, you know, South Carolina is coming off that real brutal loss there to where if they're not playing up for this game, I mean, it could go in a lot of different directions this weekend. But more so, what needs to go in Coastal's favor to have a chance?
You know, I wrote about this. I've got a blog at strutpodcast.com on the podcast that I do, and I wrote about some of this yesterday. You know, if Coastal can, and Wes and I talked about this last night, we all were hashing this thing out. If Coastal can run the ball effectively and keep it away from South Carolina and slow this game down and crunch this game down from a time standpoint, I think the Chanticleers have a chance. Now, clearly, you know, and we talked about this last night too. If this is a game Coastal's best against South Carolina's best, Coastal's not going to win this game. I mean, that's just the bottom line, right? I mean, South Carolina, their roster, their talent from top to bottom is superior to what Coastal's is. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's reality. But I think Coastal can come into this game, really with nothing to lose. Honestly, I would obviously feel better if the Chants had Samari Collier, a difference maker out there, on offense. I'd feel a lot better about it. Not to say that Tad can't get it done, but if Coastal can run the ball and shorten this game and get a little help along the way, where is South Carolina? Where are their heads? Where are they mentally after what happened to them last week and kind of what's going on all through the year? I think the Chants can do this. I mean, South Carolina came out against South Carolina State and didn't really, set the world on fire early. If Coastal can come out and not get blitzed early, like what's happened to them both times they've been to Columbia the 2 times before, which I was there to watch both of those. If they can hang in early and make this a game and give themselves some confidence and maybe get South Carolina thinking a little bit, they've got a chance to win this game.
Hey, Joe, other than Collier, who obviously we don't think will play in this game, who would you say are maybe like Coastal's 2 or 3 best players? Like who are the guys, either on offense or defense, that – when South Carolina's game planning, they're probably circling those guys. And from a Coastal standpoint, you're probably saying, these 2 or 3 kids are going to have to really play well and play up to their potential for Coastal to have a shot at the upset.
Well, that's a good question because it really kind of seems to change from week to week. It's been really kind of hard to pinpoint 1 or 2 guys. It's like, okay, as far as just my opinion of it, I mean, it seems like there's kind of a different guy that you look at. But I mean, I'll give you a couple, and I've named a couple already. I mean, Javen Simpkins and Dominic Nicely at the running back positions. I mean, those guys can take it. If they pop one, if they get a crease, they can take it, right? I mean, so I think the Gamecocks defensively are going to have to watch, for those 2 guys if they get their hands on the ball. On the outside, I'll give you a guy, Malcolm Gilly. Turned a kick for a touchdown last week against Georgia Southern. He was the MAC Special Teams Player of the Year last year, and we've kind of seen that for a reason. He's had several explosive touchdowns over the course of the last several weeks. I mean, just get the ball in his hands, and good things happen. So Malcolm Gilly's a big-time guy on offense, too. I think that could make some things happen, and I think the Gamecocks defensively definitely going to have to look at him. Bryson Graves is another one. He's a Florence kid. Right, he's a good player. He's a good, solid player. You get the ball in his hands, good things tend to happen. And again, Jamison Tucker, all-conference last year. He had a big night last week against Georgia Southern. So if we're looking offense to defense. I think that the Gamecocks on defense will have to look at those guys for Coastal.
Joe, you cool to sit tight with us and hang through the next segment as well?
All right.
Cool. We'll hit more Coastal conversation on the other side as the the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating continues on your Thursday here on The Game.
Folks, let us tell you about our friends over at Krantz Cooling. Since 1983, that's 2Ks, KrantzCooling.com. You rely on your home's air conditioning and heating systems to keep your temperatures throughout your house comfortable year-round. To keep those systems in working order, you want a professional, reliable, full-service contractor. Krantz is serving homeowners just like you in the Columbia area by delivering quality workmanship, products, positive results, safety, uncompromising integrity, as well as any of the services you need for your HVAC systems. Of course, that includes air conditioner, heating, preventative maintenance, ductless AC, indoor air quality, or if you are a business owner as well, hit up our friends at Krantz for your commercial HVAC services. How do you do that? Phone number 803-672-3224. Again, that's 803-672-3224. Or head on over to KrantzCooling.com.
Welcome back in. It is the Guard Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Jack Belcher hanging out with you, getting insight into this weekend's opponent, Coastal Carolina, from Joe Cashin of the Strut Podcast and a former play-by-play voice for Coastal as well, joining us now in the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. And Joe, first of all, appreciate you hanging through the break there. Jack and I were talking about this a little bit in the last hour. Anytime you have a game like this where you have, the in-state school at South Carolina playing one of the smaller teams from inside the state, there's always that extra little, I feel like, juice for that other team coming in. For a lot of guys on that roster that may have wanted to come to Carolina or play in the SEC that maybe were a step too slow, a couple inches too short, that get the opportunity, especially now in today's world of college football, that have the opportunity to maybe transfer elsewhere and play at a place like Carolina in the future. So really go out there and prove themselves and put it all on the line this weekend. From a motivation standpoint, how do you look at this weekend for a team like Coastal getting to play a team like South Carolina that is a little bit down right now?
I think the motivation certainly is there for Coastal's kids, like you talk about. I mean, a lot of those guys have aspirations of playing at a higher level. I mean, nothing wrong with playing with G5 Coastal, not at all. I mean, Coastal's got a lot of talented kids on that roster, but like I mentioned in the previous segment, I mean, we don't have quite as many as what South Carolina's got, right? I mean, the SEC level talent isn't up and down the roster. I think there will be a lot of motivated guys who want to go in there and, make a statement, try to do something, get their names out there, right? And they want to be seen, right? And I also think the fan base kind of gets jazzed up. Coastal's fan base gets a little bit jazzed up for this too, because obviously, the history of Coastal going independent back in '93, and there's still some heartburn there. I mean, let's be honest about it. There still is. And, the Coastal people want to come in and prove something, I mean, Coastal is certainly on even ground in a lot of sports with South Carolina, in my opinion, right? I mean, we have wins in basketball, men's basketball, softball. I wish there would be a baseball series between the two, to be quite honest with you. But, in terms of this weekend, this is a great opportunity for some of Coastal's kids, that may have not gotten looked at somewhere else, and this is a chance for them to go in there and make a statement. We had a kid that was a big-time playmaker for a couple of years who's in Columbia now. Wish he'd stayed with us, quite frankly, But anyway, it's a great opportunity for our guys to go in and hopefully do something, make a statement, make a big play, make something happen.
I'm going to second that, Joe, and honestly say that South Carolina and Coastal Carolina should be playing in baseball every year. I don't get why it doesn't happen. I don't know what the lore is behind that. Hey, Clemson plays Coastal every year, right? So why can't South Carolina play them when they play basically every other team in this state? Joe, I wanted to ask you about Tim Beck and the job that he's done. He's been there now. This is his third season there. Has them playing really good ball again. I know they're coming off a loss, but still, this has been a really nice turnaround after losing 2 out of the first 3 games to open the year against Virginia and East Carolina, just getting blown out in those games. And I know it's against pretty good competition, but what's been the main difference that Tim's been able to get these guys ready to go for conference play and play pretty good ball?
Coach Beck's in his 3rd season now, right? And Coastal, my last year of play-by-play, we went 8-5 and won the Hawaii Bowl, and had a lot of guys kind of left over from when Coach Chadwell was here, who's now at Liberty. And then, last year was kind of a tough year, right? I mean, Coastal started well at 4-1 and then just didn't have a good finish to the season. This year he comes in and says, this is the best team that he's had. In the preseason, he kind of announced that and said, this is the best squad going into the season. And then we go out and start just awful. I mean, get blown out of Virginia, who's turned out to be a lot better than I think anybody thought that was going to happen. And then we just somehow, get by Charleston Southern, then get blown out by East Carolina. And then, things are kind of looking like, okay, where is this season going to go? Well, I mean, the season really, honestly, and I talked about this in the last segment too, the season turned around when Samari Collier came on the scene. I mean, it's really no more, complicated than that. They figured out an offense that really suited him best, right? I mean, they brought in Drew Hollingshead to run air raid kind of stuff, and that just didn't seem to work with the guys that we had early running that offense. Didn't seem to work with the personnel. Obviously, we generated next to nothing on offense in the first few games, but when Samari Collier came along, a little more of a zone read, a little more RPO kind of stuff, let him run the ball, be another factor out there for the defense to have to worry about, that's when things really started to turn around. Coastal put 40 points on the board 4 weeks in a row, 400 yards of total offense. The defense kind of tightened down a little bit. Things really started to turn around in the first part of October, and that's why they're sitting where they are now, at 6-4. Now, obviously, the question is, can the offense continue the momentum, the confidence, even if Collier's not out there, which looks like we're going to be at it. No, we're not going to have him for a couple of games, but can we continue that momentum? We'll see. So I think that's kind of where things got better when the offense turned around.
Joe, if you can you speak a little bit, speaking of momentum, to kind of the big picture momentum that maybe Coastal has right now? I mean, obviously you talked about what the baseball program has done, but obviously lots of people here in Columbia very familiar with Chance Miller, who's the AD there now and was just instrumental in a lot of, I would say, creative ideas here in Columbia. He has taken that and is kind of has the freedom to put his own spin on some things there with the glow-in-the-dark jerseys, the free concessions that have kind of gone viral. What have you just kind of thought of the brand that Coastal is kind of, I guess, leaning towards right now in terms of getting talked about a little bit more, it feels like?
Well, he has certainly brought in a lot of creativity. There's no doubt about that. I mean, when you go back to the free concessions kind of thing, it was amazing when that got announced last spring. The traffic, the notices, all of the engagements with that was incredible. It's like, you mean to tell me I'm going to go to a Coastal game and get free concessions? I mean, there were so many people talking about that. That was incredible. And then, of course, obviously, it certainly doesn't hurt when your baseball team makes a run to the National Championship Series and almost gets there, right? I mean, comes that close to winning a national championship. You get your national brand out there, your logo, and everybody sees it. And then we come into this season, and then when you get a game like you just talked about, you get a game on national linear television on ESPN2 against a Marshall team, all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're going to do some crazy things here. It sounds crazy. Like, we're going to come out with this glow-in-the-dark jersey. We're going to have these drone shows, these light shows. We're going to do all this kind of stuff. And people notice that. And it really helps, too, when you win the game, when you do those kinds of things. I mean, so Chance has really come in with a lot of great creative ideas. And obviously you guys know all about him here in Columbia. But, of course, and you mentioned y'all were talking about Mike Uve brought him in too, right? I mean, so there's been a lot of stuff going on with what Chance has done. I think has been very positive for the university, and getting that brand out there, getting it seen nationally, getting eyeballs on Coastal Carolina University nationally. And I think he's done a great job of that.
Last one for you here. Got right about 2 minutes. Any thoughts on James Madison still not being ranked by the College Football Playoff Committee?
Well, I'm not the biggest JMU fan. I'm just going to be straight up and honest with you. Now, they've owned us since they've come into the league, right? If I were a Sun Belt loyalist, I would say, that kind of bothers me that they're not ranked. But no, it really doesn't bother me that they're not ranked, and it really doesn't bother me that they don't really appear to have much of a path to get there. It really just doesn't. It just doesn't.
So,
I mean, I hate it. It would be great for the league, right?
Sure,
I mean,
sure. No rooting for the league here.
But I'm not rooting for the league. I'm just not. I got no problems with Tulane being there or somebody else. But and we were talking about this last night too. So it would be great for Coastal to win this game Saturday. But in my view, if Coastal goes and makes this a competitive game and the Chanticleers are close, but don't come up with a win Saturday, but they beat James Madison next week, that's the perfect end of the season, right? For me, as far as I'm concerned. Perfect end of the season would be for that scenario to happen. So that's what I think about James Madison.
I just had to ask. I appreciate it, Joe. We appreciate your insight, and we're looking forward to this weekend.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on. Hey, check out strutpodcast.com. That's where we are. We talk Coastal Carolina athletics all the time. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. Again, go check out the Strut Podcast there for Joe Cashin. And now you know how much Coastal hates James Madison, in case you were not familiar.
Yeah, did not know how much they disliked each other, but hey, I'm looking forward to see that game next week, and that should be a big one.
Well, it's part of every.
I respect that answer. Though,
I
a
do
lot.
too. Well, see, I didn't know if he was going to be It's good for the conference. If Sun Belt could get in the playoff, but no, hey, screw those guys. I don't want to see him be successful at anything. I respect that too. Heck yeah. We'll take a look at some of the coaching carousel spinning coming up next as we continue on with the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating on your Thursday on the Game.
All right, folks, let me tell you about our friends over at Integrated Media. The beautiful thing about it is you can take your dreams for that home, make it a smart home, dreams for your man cave, dreams for the living room, and they can take whatever you're thinking about and then just turn it into a reality. You can hit them up today, integratedmediainc.com, or give them a phone call. It is 803-948-8327. Their services include basically anything to do with your TV, your surround sound, your smart home services, or securities and cameras. If you work from home, for me, it was all about my home office. Didn't really have a great connection to the Wi-Fi. Needed hardwired internet, so they came in. They ran Ethernet throughout the home into my office, into my wife's office, and made sure we had a great connection there. And then we went a step further with whole home Wi-Fi. They can also hang TVs. They can hide the wires for you, and they can go all in on that man cave too. Hit them up today. Again, for more information, integratedmediainc.com.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, and Wes Mitchell hanging out with you on your Thursday here on the game. Reminder, with the game against Coastal this weekend, your next chance to win $1,000 in the Loyola Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest. If the Gamecocks can get a special teams score, you can win all the money in the pot. Go to 1075thegame.com if you've not already and sign up for the Loyola Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest. The coaching carousel has been spinning wildly this season so far, and we've got our first official hire that will be taking over in 2026, that being James Franklin at Virginia Tech. Yesterday, in his introduction, spoke about the opportunity to take over for the Hokies starting in 2026.
Yeah, so I think your question's a great one, and what I would say is, right, it's unique. There hasn't been too many guys that have been a head coach in the SEC, a head coach in the Big Ten, really unusual success at a place like Vanderbilt that hadn't had that type of success before, and then go to Penn State, win a Big Ten championship the first year off of sanctions. The last 3 years, we had more success than anybody in the country, but 4 programs and a few plays away for playing for the national championship. So we're very proud of what we were able to achieve there, and I am forever grateful for that time and experience. So being able to use all those lessons and experiences and now bring it to the ACC. The ACC was my first break at the University of Maryland working for Ralph Friedgen, so I've experience there. I've been a coach in the NFL with the Green Bay Packers, so just going to take all these experiences that I've been able to have and pour them into my time here at Virginia Tech. So excited about the opportunity. Obviously, we've got a ton of work to do. College football's changed. You have the ability to flip your roster a lot faster than when I took over those other 2 programs, and we're excited about the opportunity.
So, for one, I still don't think Penn State should have moved on from James Franklin. I think he was still doing a lot there, and they could have had still some sustained success with him going forward, but they made the move that they made, and they'll live with whatever those repercussions are. We'll see who they end up hiring in this cycle themselves. But whenever a coach gets hired at a new place, we always, I think, have kind of an instant reaction of how we think that's going to work before seeing it play out. When I see James Franklin go into Virginia Tech, I'm like, that seems perfect. Do I know if James Franklin's going to take him to a national championship like he's talking about? I don't know. Do I think he can get them in the mix to competing for the ACC and playoff spots? Absolutely. And it seems like they're going to be investing resources into him as well to give him what he needs from an NIL standpoint and revenue sharing standpoint. This seems like a great hire by Virginia Tech.
Yeah, another man's trash is another man's treasure. Am I right? So I think, yeah, you're right, Tyler. I think it's crazy that Penn State moved on from James Franklin so quickly. I get it. This season was not going well. You had lost that game to Oregon as one of the top teams in the country, and then a few weeks later you're getting fired after losing that game the way you did to UCLA and losing another one after that. So I get it that things weren't going well. I disagree with moving on from him just because you were in the college football playoff semifinals last year, getting to the playoff for the first time under Franklin. And he's done some good things there, right? So he's had a lot of good seasons. He won a Big Ten championship in 2016. But, I think this is a really nice move for Virginia Tech. They were on it, getting this hire done. And look, it seems like a really good fit overall just because you're in the ACC and you look at that schedule for next year. I mean, who knows what the roster is going to look like, what they retain, and how much they go into the portal and high school recruiting to fill out what this roster could look like for 2026. But look at that schedule, man. It is a lot lighter on paper than what a Big Ten schedule at Penn State would look like.
Yeah, a couple thoughts, guys. For one, I'm done declaring and believing that just because you hire a big name coach that it's going to work out. Like, I think this last cycle showed us that there are no guarantees. So even hiring James Franklin, if you're Virginia Tech, not a guarantee. That said, on paper, I mean, is Virginia Tech in kind of its current situation that it's in? Like, this is not the Frank Beamer at its heyday Virginia Tech. This is the best hire I think they could make in terms of giving yourself a chance to go win and win pretty quickly. I think here's the thing about hiring James Franklin. Yeah, the roster may look different next year, but that's a name that's going to build some excitement. That's a name that if you were just at another school, and for him, he was just at obviously a Big Ten school. I always thought in today's modern era that, I mean, not to go apples, oranges completely here, but I thought one of the negatives for like a South Carolina baseball and going and getting a Paul Mainieri is that he wasn't coming off of another job where you had relationships with current players that were going to follow you to play. And the big thing you see now, whether you're an offensive coordinator who your quarterback follows you, or you're a head coach and your best players follow you, look at Ashley Chastain Woodard here for South Carolina softball. 4 or 5 of her best players from Charlotte come to South Carolina and play very, very well. So if you're James Franklin, you're kind of going to have a unique opportunity. Hold on to your best players, bring some players from Penn State. There will probably be a few players from that Penn State recruiting class, I would imagine, that follow him as well. So you do have a chance to build something pretty quickly there. And the other thing, you talked about the investment for Virginia Tech. Guys, from what I've been told, they're in a bad way at Virginia Tech in terms of their ops building, in terms of their recruiting support staff, in terms of just spending money that your top-tier programs right now are spending to give your coaching staff resources. If you hire a random FCS coach who's done pretty well, maybe he's a great coach. He doesn't have the cachet to come in and say, I need this, this, and this. He's going, I'm happy to have this job. James Franklin can go, I'm not taking your job unless you promise me this, this, and that. So I know even before this hire, there was some public stuff about a recommitment to football. It reminds me a little bit of South Carolina, 10, 15 years ago when the facilities just were not up to par. Now you're going to have to be careful. How do you split that NIL, rev share, facilities, all that stuff. But the backbone of VT needs some work. He's going to be able to have the cachet to come in and ask for those resources.
Yeah, and again, being at Penn State, obviously, it's coming from a huge job. It's got connections to the area. You mentioned that he coached at Maryland. We obviously know how fertile that recruiting ground is in the DMV area that he's already got a good track record with. So, yeah, I think this is something that's going to work out again. How successful they're going to be, I don't know. Maybe their ceiling is just being like an 8-4 program. But if you're a Virginia Tech fan right now and I told you, hey, you're going to go 8-4 every year for the next 8 years but not make the playoff, you'd probably take that because that's a better situation than you have been in.
I think go ahead, Wes.
I was going to say, guys, sorry to cut you off, Jack, but like the path for the ACC right now, I mean, who's like stopping you? Like who do you say 100%? Clemson has taken a step back. Florida State isn't great right now. Miami, yeah, they're like in a good spot. Like who's going to step forward and sort of be the best, not team, best program in the ACC? I don't know if there is an obvious one right now. So, all you have to do is win the conference and you're going to be in the playoff. So I think he just has a much easier path now. To go back to what you guys said, though, too, I agree 100% with the idea. I've seen a lot of coaches that have been, that guy can't win the big game. And then when they break through and do win the big game, everybody forgets that anybody even said they can't win the big game. So the other side of this, man, is what if we look back and Virginia Tech made a better hire than Penn State is going to make in replacing James Franklin? Everybody who's ready, fire this, fire that, fire Beamer, you better have a plan in place if that is your mindset, because it is one thing to just be fed up and be like, it's time to move on. It's another to go make an upgrade hire. What are the chances Penn State actually makes an upgrade hire? Because, guys, hiring coaches is an absolute crapshoot. And I would say more so than ever is it a crapshoot right now.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, who is Penn State going to hire that's better than James Franklin? Like, Kurt Cignetti re-signed at Indiana. I don't think Matt Rule is a better option than James Franklin, but he's already re-upped at Nebraska. So, what are you going to get? Lane Kiffin? I don't think he's going up there. He'll probably stay in the SEC for sure.
Well, Lane Kiffin's got to coach LSU and Florida at the same time. Don't you know, Jack?
Exactly. So that's the thing, is that it's just, I don't know if Penn State's going to hire a better coach than Franklin with Virginia Tech. But, I think it's a good thing that Franklin was able to get away. And now he's got a chance to go win in the ACC, because he's already done it in the SEC and the Big Ten. I think this could be really nice to see what he does in the ACC.
Well, we'll see what happens in 2026 when James Trent Franklin takes over for the first time as the Hokies head coach. You mentioned Lane Kiffin. Are we just pawns in the game of Lane Kiffin right now? Because we might be. We'll talk about that coming up next to wrap up the hour. Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating on your Thursday on the Game.
Yeah, that's absolutely not true. There's been no ultimatum, anything like that at all. And so I don't know where that came from, like a lot of stuff that comes out there. Like I said, man, we're having a blast. I love it here. I mean, our running back sitting right over here. Come on over. And it just couldn't be better. Like I said, you pray for things. Our fans prayed for this type of thing, and now we're in the middle of it. So enjoy it. You're 10-1. You're getting ready. You got a bye week. You get to watch half the country lose, and there's no way we can lose Saturday. And then you play the Egg Bowl and go dominate that and keep that Egg Bowl trophy home where it's been for a long time.
Welcome back in. It is the Garner Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, and Wes Mitchell wrapping up the hour here on your Thursday. That, of course, was the enigma himself, Lane Kiffin, on the Pat McAfee show the other day, denying the rumored ultimatum that Ole Miss had given him on making a decision before the Egg Bowl on if he was going to stay or go and take another job. And, guys, this has been such a fascinating story for weeks now, but especially this week when you had the stuff with his family visiting Gainesville and Baton Rouge, the ultimatum rumors. I am now fully convinced, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong on this or off base, I think Lane's just trolling us. I think this is about to be the biggest gotcha we've seen when he decides he's going to stay at Ole Miss after stringing along LSU and Florida for basically a month now.
Well, I mean, that's the main thing he does, right? Is everything he does for the most part is it's a troll or it's a quip or something. I mean, that's who he is. That's, you see it on Twitter, and you glance at his Twitter for 20 seconds, and you'll immediately see, just what I mean. Like, yeah, that's who he is. And so, do I think he's going to stay at Ole Miss? Yeah, I think he is. I think it'd be kind of crazy for him to leave what he's got there. I mean, he is a king in Oxford. I mean, he has everything he wants there. And the other thing for him might be that he wants to take on a bigger challenge and kind of just be at a big-time school and win national championships. But I think he could certainly do that at Ole Miss. I mean, look at the roster that they were able to put together last year. Now, I know they won 10 games last year and went 10-3, missed the playoff. But I think with that roster they were able to put together, it just shows that, like, Ole Miss is willing to put up the financial resources to help build a contender. Now it's just about, hey, going out there and putting it on the field, and they're going to certainly get to the playoff this year and have a chance to win a national championship.
Guys, I think Lane maybe actually does not know what he's going to do, frankly. Like, now, is he maybe enjoying this spotlight as well? Here's the thing. Think about it like this. So if he is leaving, right, and now there's talk Ole Miss isn't going to let him be in the playoff, potentially, not going to let him coach in the playoff, potentially. So if he wants to follow through with his team, which I'm sure he does, he can't let it get out yet that he's leaving.
Yep.
However, Florida or LSU are going to be like, hey, bro, we need you to, like, start now. Like, we have a roster to build. We have a team to build. Now, he may be the one coach in the country that has the power right now to be like, well, I have an offer from 3 SEC teams. You're going to wait on me, and you're not going to let this leak until I'm done with my current team and I'm done with the playoff. Now, if you really want to play chess, so obviously we know Florida's in the SEC. We know LSU is in the SEC. These are two, let's say he is staying at Ole Miss. You actually can harm your future opponents in Florida and LSU by making them wait as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So what if he's just like, I'm going to stay at Ole Miss, but I'm going to troll Florida and LSU, not just for the fun of it, but to hinder their own search? Like, is there any chance there's a deeper play here from Lane Kiffin?
I firmly believe that. And like, Florida, it does seem like has, like, other backup plans. There was reports about them talking with Summerall, whether that's true or not. But they do seem...
They died in a hurry, though.
They died in a hurry, but it does seem like they're at least actively trying to have contingent plans if the Kiffin thing doesn't work out. I've heard nothing on the LSU front of other options besides Lane Kiffin. It seems like all the eggs are in the basket of Lane Kiffin, where if he does stay at Ole Miss, I think there'll be a, oh, bleep, now what are we going to do?
Here's the thing, though. If they don't get Kiffin, I mean, I think they could, but is LSU, all right, take out the name brand, which is a big factor. is LSU really that appealing of a job? I know, I'm sure it is. You know, it's SEC, but it kind of just seems like they've got a lot of. It's not a great time over there right now, and
Well, they've done themselves no favors either.
No,
here
they
these
haven't.
past couple weeks.
honestly, I'm going to be honest, guys. I think if LSU is able to close out this season, winning these last 2 games, and then you get Western Kentucky this weekend, then Oklahoma next weekend. I honestly think they need to take a serious look at Frank Wilson. I think he would be. I don't know if that's the way LSU is going to go down this route, but if they don't get Lane, take a real look at Frank Wilson, because just seeing some of what he's done there so far and bringing former players back into the building, just being a complete opposite of Brian Kelly and what he did in Baton Rouge, I think it could be what LSU needs for the future.
We'll see. It's going to be an interesting saga to watch continue unfold as this entire coaching carousel has been up to this point so far. That'll do it for the Garnet Trust Hour. Counter next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs as your Thursday rolls along here on the game.
If you are looking for a reliable local roofing company to help your home or business with your roofing needs, check out our friends at Classic Roofing. Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer, our guys, friends of the program here. They can help you take good care of your roof. That can be challenging, but you don't have to do it alone. They have years of expertise under their hats. They're a local company. Again, their families live right here in the Midlands, and the guys at Classic Roofing are GAF certified roofers. Only about 7% of roofers nationwide even have that certification. They can do inspections, installations, replacements, and repairs on your roof. You can visualize your new roof and what it would look like at ClassicRoofingSC.com. You can check out their reviews and get a free estimate there. ClassicRoofingSC.com, or give them a call, 803-590-7870. That's the reliable roofers over at Classic Roofing.
11 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyrad West Mitchell, and after 2 long days, finally reunited with his beloved laptop mouse, that being Chris Clark.
Guys, it was a long couple days. I've done better not leaving the mouse in the studio. Got back. Yeah, as you know, Tyler, I texted you. I was like, oh, my gosh. You know,
Was it when you got home and realized it? Was that it?
Yeah, I used the laptop, pulled it out. I'm using the trackpad. You know, I use a laptop just at home.
Yeah.
I used to have a desktop. I'm all laptop now, and fingers starting to cramp. Like, let me pull out my mouse. Oh, it's not there. Then Wes trolled me by sending a picture of it. I don't appreciate that.
Is that not the most first world problem thing I've ever heard?
Yeah,
my finger is cramping on my expensive MacBook. I need my wireless mouse to alleviate my pains.
I need my fancy looking wireless mouse. It looks like it's from the future that I left in my beautiful studio I have access to.
I know. It's okay. First world problems. Yeah. We're all here, though.
We are all here. I should have kept account because it was Wes doing it for a while, and then now you've done it. I wonder who has the record for most times leaving said wireless mouse in studio.
I still am the winner.
You might be.
I'm gonna do better today. I'm keeping it like right beside my laptop so that I can't forget it.
Well,
so
if you forget it again today, we're gonna do something really funny with it. I promise.
Okay.
Yeah, so
all right.
Gotta be on your P's and Q's on that one.
I will be. Yep.
Obviously, Coastal Carolina coming up this weekend for South Carolina. We talked a lot about them in the last hour. We'll get a little bit more specifically into them coming up a little bit later on in this hour. But yesterday we did hear from the coordinators. And I mean all the coordinators this time, Clayton White, Jody Camillus, and Mike Furry, at least for the next couple weeks, as your offensive coordinator. Didn't hear from him last week, but and Jack and I talked about this earlier. I was impressed by the accountability, right? And I'm not saying that I thought he was going to go in there and deny what happened on Saturday, but it definitely seemed like a stark contrast in terms of going back and reviewing what went wrong in the game on Saturday that I don't feel like Shula was quite as open with when we heard from him this year.
I texted Wes this yesterday, and sometimes the things Wes and I talk about or say will stay in the text bubbles, but I will say this publicly, like, and look, it doesn't change the out. If you're saying, I don't care what the press conference was like, they lost. Yeah, like, I get that. I'm not talking about that, but a lot of people are mad right now about what's being said in press conference settings. We'd like to hear this. We'd like to hear that. You're never going to satisfy everybody, but I thought that was maybe the best coordinator press conference I've heard from at South Carolina, like, since I've been doing this, because of what you said, Tyler. Like, there was explanations of what happened, why was there success, why were there some failures. There were some specifics attached to it, not just we didn't execute, we got to be better. You know, there was some of that dressed up, but it was explained more in detail. And I thought Mike Furry was just very honest. I mean, even talking about the decision to go up into the booth versus the sideline, and hey, we missed some elements, especially in those key, short yardage situations where in hindsight, maybe you want to be down on the field, and, how they got away from certain things. I just thought there was a lot of detail in there to where if you hear it, it doesn't change the outcome of the game. We all know that. But I think people appreciate hearing some more context. And you can tell, Mike Furry's been a head coach at 3 different times at two different schools. And you can tell he kind of thinks that way, talks that way. He's a really good communicator. You can see why he's good with his players, and see why he's good on the recruiting trail as well. But I for one, my personal opinion, I appreciated hearing more detail on some of those things.
Yeah, I think it was kind of refreshing. Now, there becomes a point where if after multiple press conferences, like we've seen this with other OCs, say what you want. I felt like Marcus Satterfield actually always tried to go in there and tried to tell you what he was thinking to an extent in certain situations. And over a period of time, people are like, well, I'm tired of you telling me, you messed up, or this has to be better, or that has to be better. But certainly right now, I think it was kind of refreshing. And people, to an extent, one, they want to hear some accountability. 2, they want to just know, hey, what were you thinking here? Like, they may not agree with what you were thinking here. And again, after a certain point, if you're losing or if the offense isn't going well, people get tired of the explanations and they start saying, well, that sounds like an excuse to me. That's not an explanation. But I do think at the end of the day, leaning, unless you have a competitive reason not to give away what you were thinking in a certain situation, which I understand there are some, we just don't want our future opponents to know our thought process. I get that. But you can still give fans an inkling of what you were thinking in a certain situation to at least let them, okay, well, I may not agree, but at least I now understand why the staff did this, that, or the other. And, you know, I also, something I've just noticed, you know, Furry said, and you can even go to what Clayton White said. Clayton didn't say this explicitly, but Furry said, man, maybe I was a little too aggressive with some play calls in the second half. Clayton White sort of alluded to, you know, there's a few things you want back in terms of play calling. I've still seen this take from some people. They got conservative in the second half. I really, guys, do not think they got conservative in the second half. If anything, I think they kept trying to run the thing up, but just did not execute at all. They were still blitzing on defense. They gave up some deep balls and some long catch and runs, you know, because guys weren't in one-on-one situations necessarily, but we're a little bit vulnerable on the back end. So I know everybody hates soft coverage and stuff like that, but I mean, they almost may have been somewhat too aggressive with hindsight being 50-50.
Let's hear a little bit of that accountability that Coach Furry talked about yesterday when he discussed the two different halves of Saturday's game against A&M.
Yeah, it's really one word. I mean, if you go back and watch the film, and of course, I wanted to right away because I just wanted to make sure that I saw what I saw going through the game, you know, from the first half and the second half and reviewing the iPad in between series and things like that. But it really is just one word. It's just execution. You know, when you look at the first half last week, we were very explosive and we were making plays. We were taking our shots and we were completing our shots. We had some trick plays in there that we were doing. You know, we completed some trick plays. And then obviously just the things that we wanted to do consistently, we were just getting some big gains out of it and moving the ball, and which creates energy, right? All that stuff and having fun and the guys flying around creates energy. And I think what happened in the second half, just going back and looking at all of it, I think in the first half we were like 5 for 6 and really like called shots, you know. And one's a big touchdown. Two of them are big touchdown. One to Dre, one to Nick. Obviously, he took the one that we got out of the pocket. He took it for 80. And then had some other ones. We made some, you know, we had 14 explosives in that game last week, which is, you know, that's a pretty good stat to have. When you go back and look at the second half, I think we were like 2 for 7 in our shot plays. You know, 2 for 7 in the chunk plays, what we would call. And I think when we didn't hit those, then that puts you back in, you know, second and third and long. And that's not the game that you wanted to live in. And so we definitely executed way better in the first half than the second half. And I think the other thing, too, is I think I got a little bit too aggressive. You know, I thought maybe just from a play calling standpoint where trying to just put the game away at times, if that makes sense. And so learning lesson for me and going through this process and continue to grow in that area. But and protecting those guys instead of just trying to put the game away and get some points and do something like that, just making sure we're better fit for that and stick to the plan. But the one word is just execution. We hit a couple of those big explosives in the second half. We just get one of them. You know, that whole game has changed from a time standpoint. And so that's the two tails of those halves.
And to his point there at the end, and I'm not trying to position this as an excuse, but as a first-time play caller at the SEC level, you got put in a position you probably were not expecting to be in, where you were up by 4 touchdowns at halftime, right? You probably expected, if anything, even if you're really successful on offense, it's probably a game that's going to be pretty tight all the way through, where you're coaching with no more than maybe a touchdown or so lead, and now suddenly you're up by 4 touchdowns. Like, okay, well, A, I do still want to be aggressive because I still want to get points to make sure they don't come back, but B, I have to be able to manage the time to make sure I use the clock and don't give them, you know, a quick 3 and outs where they get the ball back quickly. That's a lot of things on your plate as a first-time play caller at this level to have to manage. Again, not using that as an excuse, but that goes into the thought process of everything that Mike Furry had to consider as he was managing that second half on Saturday, and execution, as he pointed out as well, wasn't the same in the first half. There were throws that were missed. There were balls that were dropped, those kind of things. And again, that's not all on the players, not all on him. It's everybody's fault at the end of the day. But that's kind of the perfect storm of how everything went wrong on Saturday.
Yeah, a perfect storm in the way that you don't want, right? And there's so many ways to look at it. I mean, if you can get, if you get that third and 2 and convert a first down, if you get the 4th and 1 and get a first down, maybe just that one play is enough, to run some more time off the clock, maybe keep the drive going, right? Maybe you come away with some points there. If you get a field goal, completely different game. You go from just about everything going right in the first half, not everything, but close to, you'll take what you did in the first half to coming away with no points in the second half. And so I think there's a few different ways to look at it. I mean, number one, if Carolina, had gone a little more conservative or a lot more conservative in the second half and said, we're up 27 points. Let's try to play defense because we played defense in the first half pretty well. Yeah, it helped that A&M dropped some balls, sure. But let's play defense and let's bleed the clock. Let's run some time off. That very well may have worked, and Mike Fury seems to be taking the stance that we should have done at least a little more of that probably in hindsight. But if you do that and you're just 3 and out every drive and you're just running time off and A&M still turns it around offensively, what's the narrative after the game? Well, you got conservative, you played not to lose, and then you end up losing. On the other side, you can go with kind of what they did where they are being aggressive from a play call standpoint. Like, there's a great argument. Yeah, put the game away because you nearly did in the first half, but you missed a few opportunities to put it away to the extent that it's almost mathematically impossible to come back. It was darn near mathematically impossible at one point anyway, right?
Right.
But from an aggressiveness standpoint, I think fans like that idea of, when you've got the opportunity to end the game, end it. And so that was kind of the approach that they took. Now, it didn't end up working. And I think a big reason for that, and there's ownership among coaches and players, is they didn't execute, some of those things as well in the second half and weren't able to come up with any points. So a few different ways to look at it. Again, hindsight is easy to sit here and say. I understand their approach, though, of trying to go ahead and stay more aggressive in the second half. Obviously, you don't want that to happen, right? What happened is extremely painful. We've been talking about it for a while. We'll continue talking about it for a while. But I think you'd rather be more aggressive, not in a reckless way.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were from a play calling standpoint than just being conservative and shutting it down and playing not to lose.
Well, I think that's Furry's personality, too, and that's something that the guys probably rallied around, too, going into the game is, hey, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to go out. We're going to take this thing. We're going to play loose. And in a weird way, when you're up big and then all of a sudden you just feel that avalanche of momentum start to shift against you, in a weird way, all of a sudden you do feel that pressure, I feel like, to an extent. Like, oh, we don't want to be the team that's about to blow a league this big, on national TV and kind of go in the history books for the wrong reason. And, I think just from a standpoint of like, all right, yes, this hasn't happened in the last couple of decades in the SEC. So the chance of this happening were very, very low. However, also, I think, man, when you look back at A&M's first half, how much of that, obviously we see now that it wasn't sustainable, but I was about to say how much of that was sustainable for an entire second half. Once A&M picked themselves up off the mat, this is an A&M offense that scores 40 points in a bunch of games this year.
So how do you move on from a loss like that and refocus things onto Coastal Carolina this upcoming weekend? We'll discuss that coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you here on your Thursday on the game. Tonight, Carolina Calls, Coach Beamer and Todd Ellis coming up at 7 o'clock. That will lead right into coverage of Thursday night football between the Bills and the Texans at 8. Of course, Coach Beamer going to give his final thoughts ahead of Saturday's matchup against Coastal, and I'm sure answer plenty more questions about what went wrong on Saturday there in College Station. And Wes, we talked with Joe Cashin in the last hour and went over the details of this Coastal team. And look, on paper, Carolina is the better team. And if Carolina goes out there and plays their absolute best, they should win on Saturday. But when you're coming off the heels of a historic loss like Carolina had and had to be one of these stories of college football this week for how that game fell apart on you, that can be a distraction. And if you go out there like with any sport and are thinking about something else that happened a week ago or whenever, and you're not focused on the task at hand, you can go out there and lose. So this is the week, more than any other week this year, where leadership in the locker room and refocusing is going to be more important than ever, and we'll see what version of South Carolina we get on Saturday.
Yeah, South Carolina's had, I mean, what do you think, guys? They've had precisely one game this year where you can go in and worry about that, like, letdown factor, you know? And that's South Carolina State. No disrespect to the Bulldogs, of course. And no disrespect to Coastal. I think, I think fans, especially because of how the season's gone, they're on alert. I think everybody in coaching staff, locker room, they're on alert too. But my point, I mean, your schedule that you've played has been insanely difficult.
Yes.
You know, there haven't been any gimmies on the schedule aside from, if you want to count SC State. Even Virginia Tech turned out to be not a very good football team, but going into that game, there was a lot of buzz. It was game one. Virginia Tech had the season last year where they were pretty close. Their record wasn't great, but they were in a lot of very close games, rebuilt through the portal. They certainly had higher expectations, which is precisely why Brent Pry was dismissed, and now James Franklin's the head coach there. But every single week, I mean, you don't have to get up for these games. You're playing, here comes Oklahoma. Oh, here comes Bama. Oh, now we got to go to Ole Miss. Oh, now we got to go to A&M. Even Kentucky and Vandy coming in here, and we saw what Vandy did to the Gamecocks. So I don't really look at this one. If South Carolina was sitting here at, whatever, if they had 8 wins, 7 wins at this point, you'd probably be a little bit more on alert of not reading your own press clippings and things like that. But I think there's for a bunch of reasons, I don't think you're as concerned about that. What you are concerned about is just playing well. I'm not concerned about the mental aspect of it. I think you're just concerned about playing well in this game because, quite frankly, you still have not really put together a complete game really for at any point of the season, even in wins. I mean, maybe Kentucky's the closest thing to it. You kind of started off slow there, but you ended up putting together a pretty complete game in all 3 phases, and that was one of your 3 wins. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody really needs to be on alert other than you got to go fix some things that, you have a greater margin for error in this game. You've had none basically all season. You're still going to have to play well to win because Coastal team can score some points.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on alert for a different reason. I'm on alert because here's the thing I think people don't realize. Like, yes, a lot of fans had kind of given up on bowl eligibility and didn't really expect South Carolina to go win the game at A&M anyway. When Beamer says, like, in the building, hey, we genuinely believe we're going to win these games, I believe him when he says that. So, like, I would be on alert, not because South Carolina is going to come in with the big head. Obviously, they're not. I think you're on alert. You can't let that half beat you twice. And you really just can't let this entire season and just the beatdown that it has been mentally carry over into a game where you kind of just go through the motions, because now a bowl game is out of the question. You have a rivalry game next week, which is right on the horizon. I mean, they already did the Tiger Burn this week, so like that's we all know what that game means in the state of South Carolina. Now, maybe it doesn't to all those players to an extent, but you just can't look past Coastal, and you can't let this past weekend continue over and beat you. And it's just been such a tough season all the way around. I think, Beamer's kind of superpower is that he gets his guys back up and they do go play for him. They, to this point, even in some disappointing moments, they have not quit. And so I think that's the thing. If you're him, you got to just stay diligent and keep pushing those buttons to make sure that you're going to get a full team effort this week, because I think, guys, we'll talk about, I'm sure, keys and all that later on. Carolina needs to start kind of fast in this game. They don't need the murmurs in the crowd, the woe is me, here we go, and then Coastal makes a couple first downs and starts milking this clock. Next thing you know, it's a 7-point game at halftime, and everybody starts getting nervous. That is the last thing that South Carolina needs in this football game.
And I think you make a good point there, because I'll go back to the Oklahoma game now over a month ago, where as soon as the offense failed on that first drive and turned the ball over on downs in the red zone, the Fire Chula chant started, right? People were at their wits' end when it came to the Shula offense, and they'll let that be known. And I think there's a lot of people, look, everybody's still supporting the team. If you're going in there, you want to see the team win, obviously, but if things do go sideways, if you get off to a slow start, if Coastal does put up a couple scores and you find yourself down by halftime, the chants will start. Like, there are going to be people there not afraid to let their opinions and voice be heard. And again, does that affect what happens on the field? Maybe not necessarily, but that is a fan base willing to show you its displeasure on where the season's been. You're 3-7 right now. If they feel like you're about to go 3-8, potentially 3-9, then they're going to let you know that they're not pleased with what's happening, and probably going to be chanting for other people to be fired, including somebody like Shane Beamer. So that's something you have to think about this weekend in terms of where your fan base is going to be if you don't get off to a good start and Coastal goes out there and maybe pushes you around a little bit early.
Yeah, it is. I think that's a great point, Wes. Don't let it beat you twice, because, think about this. As bad as the season has gone, if you could have finished that game at A&M, you're beating not a top 25 team. You're beating a not top 10, a top 5 team who had not lost.
Team.
Top 3 team, if you want to keep going. Top 3 team on the road, and a place you've never won, right? Yeah, never won. It would have been Beamer's 4th top 10 win at South Carolina. And then all of a sudden, you're going, we can win 7 games this year. As bad as it's been. And I'm not saying that should be, oh man, I'm not saying that's the goal, guys. But as bad as it's been, you could start thinking about, okay, now we got momentum. We got a critical offseason. We just beat a top 5 team. We have a chance to beat Coastal. We have a chance to win a rivalry game. That gets us 6 wins. We have a chance to make not the best bowl in the world, but a bowl, go win 7 games, and then roll into the offseason feeling like, okay, we're a little more back on track here. The fact that you didn't do that, and now you're, unless there's the weird APR stuff, like you're not making a bowl game.
Yeah.
One of Beamer's strengths is keeping his team engaged when things aren't good. When a team's losing, not everything is going to be positive all the time, but that is one of his strengths. And so the scenario I just described is obviously off the table, but you can't let that beat you twice to where you can't get these last 2 and carry a little bit of momentum into the offseason and kind of salvage what's left. And I think they do have some guys on this team that want to finish it strong. And I think any win you get down the stretch, the rivalry game's always going to mean something, no matter what, to this fan base.
So what are we looking for in the last couple of games of the season? We'll talk about that coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on The Game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Ed, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark with you on your Thursday here on the game. Saturday, 11 a.m., Gamecocks game day. Myself and Elijah Campbell getting things kicked off live from Jay's Corner. Kickoff at 4:15 between South Carolina and Coastal Carolina as the Gamecocks will start phase one of wrapping up the 2025 season. Of course, Clemson coming up next weekend at noon over at Willie B. This weekend, by the way, will be the weekend they honor the seniors. I believe Beamer said the other day about 3:50 is when they'll start doing that, about 25 minutes before kickoff. And, guys, I think this will be Luke Doty's, 8th senior day.
Yep.
And for all I know, he probably has another year of eligibility left next year, too.
Got to find one under the couch.
So why not? What is eligibility these days? Do we even know? It's like a catch in the NFL. I don't know what it is. It's a word. It's a phrase, but it doesn't really have a definition.
Guys, I do think, in all seriousness, Wes, you've been following Luke for a long time, since middle school, honestly, I think. I think he's finally done.
Since I was in middle school.
Yeah, that's right. You get Luke's birth notice.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm on it.
Yeah.
I got it. I think I think this is the final year.
I will triple check if y'all want, but as the premier source on all things Luke Doty over the years, I did confirm earlier this year that this is it.
Okay.
So,
stamp it.
I want to say we filter out all the COVID year guys after this year. Now, there's probably somebody out there that's looking for going to have a 12th year of eligibility at some point, but at least for the guys that came in 2020 that were gifted that extra year because of what the COVID year was, I think they should all, at least 99% of them should be done this season.
Yeah. I honestly, all that had to make me retrain to where I think about a guy like Monkel Goodwine.
Yeah.
I think his first year in college was 2021. And so, nowadays, anytime I see a guy and they're like, oh, he's a redshirt senior, I'm always like, well, does he have a COVID year? So you have to go back and look and see if he did or not. But, yeah, the eligibility thing is we're out of that COVID year phase, or we're about to get out of it. You might still have some stragglers that, I had a COVID year, then I had a red shirt, then I had a medical red shirt, then I had another medical red shirt. You're still going to see some of those, but I think it's actually going to dwindle down a little bit because of that extra year in 2020.
So you'll get to see Luke Doty's actual final walk this upcoming weekend if you get there in time before the game starts. In terms of what we're looking for, again, you can't really do much to improve that this season has been a disappointment. You were expected to be a team that was going to be once again in the conversation for the playoff. You're nowhere near that. In fact, you're not even going to a bowl game at this point in time. And I don't even know if I want to call it goals, but what are we looking for? What are we hoping to see in these final two games, if anything, in the last 8 quarters to close out the year that, I don't know if it gives you optimism or hope going into the offseason or just sets the table for your changes that need to be made? I don't know. What are we looking for?
I mean, 2 wins. That's obvious.
Sure.
One of them is meaningful in the sense of, again, no disrespect to Coastal, but you can't lose to Coastal. That's not, you just don't want to do that. They're a good program. They have been for a while. Don't want to lose to Coastal. They're an in-state program. They're not an SEC program. Everybody knows. And then obviously Clemson's your rival. But, beyond the obvious, because that's not great analysis to say, we want to see 2 wins. I think a few things. Number one, can you play better offensively? Can you build on – you did a lot of good, actually, in the first half of last week. And then to kind of fit the theme of the rest of the season, you didn't put together a full game. We've seen games where they ran the ball well, couldn't pass it. Passed the ball well, couldn't run it. Hit some explosive plays, couldn't execute the basics in short yardage, right? Last week it was you did a lot of good things in all those facets in the first half, couldn't in the second. So just can you put together a complete game? Can you look better on offense to where you go in knowing that you're going to have a new offensive coordinator next season who's going to bring a different feel, a different scheme? We don't know what it'll be, who it'll be, obviously, but that'll build a little bit of, I think, optimism, as you said, Tyler, going into next year that, hey, there are some pieces here. They're going to add. There's going to be some guys gone off this year's team. You've got the portal in and out, but just building that. And I think another thing here is leadership. Mike Fury actually talked about this earlier, too. I thought he gave some good insight into Lenora Sellers. He's never going to be I don't know if he's ever going to be a guy that, like you saw last week with Marcel Reed, when he gathers the offense around and talks to them and they kind of break the huddle, on the sideline. I don't know if he'll ever be that guy. He's more of a guy like you look at the back half of last year, he was a good leader because people just fed off what he was doing on the field. But Mike Fury did say, hey, we're trying to get him to take that next step as a leader. And they've had conversations about that. He mentioned that Sellers gathered the receivers around in practice the other day, mentioned some things he wanted to see. So just whether it's Sellers or even some younger guys who project to be back offensively, defensively, can you see some leadership steps on this team, especially in the last 2 games of a very challenging season? I think that would make the staff and, frankly, the fans feel better, and I think it would help lead to better results.
Well, and I mean, guys, to go back to just the 2 wins, I mean, nobody's going to be happy with the overall season, but how different does South Carolina feel? How different do South Carolina fans feel going into the offseason if you're talking about, for one, I mean, frankly, for Coastal, it's just avoiding the unthinkable, right, which would be having to deal with having lost to Coastal. With Clemson, it would be your second straight win over Clemson. It would be 3 of the last 4 over Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be, frankly, if you're a Gamecock fan who only, attends home games, you haven't gotten to, see your guys beat Clemson in that stadium and walk back to your tailgate in forever. So I just think it's all about the vibes, the momentum. When you start going into even, I mean, is this a bridge too far? Even in terms of selling an offensive coordinator on, hey man, yeah, we had a disappointing year, but it's really not that far off. The exact same coaching staff went to what was, a win away from a college football playoff last year, except for a change at offense coordinator. So if you fix the OC situation, what does that look like for next year? And so I just think the whole general vibe of the program, this is still, even though they're down this year, this is still Clemson. This is still Dabo Swinney. This is still a program that has a bunch of college football playoff appearances, a couple of national titles, and a bunch of ACC championships. It would mean a lot to add that to this season's resume. This feels like one of those late 90s, early 2000s South Carolina Clemson games coming up where that's what that's what you put the entire season on in terms of whether it was successful or not when it got to the end. So, I think it matters a lot just in terms of perception if they can go out and play well in this matchup.
Yeah, and to one of the points that Chris made a moment ago, again, you hadn't really put together a full game so far this year. And look, Coastal's probably your better opportunity to do that against compared to maybe a Clemson team that has put together some wins as of late. And again, it doesn't change the narrative and the perception of this season being a disappointment. But if you go out there and you just, like we talk about all the time, do your job for 4 quarters and put this thing away on Saturday, do you at least come away saying, hey, you know what? We played our best game of the entire year. We got to win, first time in almost 2 months, and there is something to be said for that. Again, it doesn't change anything, doesn't make the fan base feel any better, but that at least is some kind of positive note you can look for in these final couple games for, again, ultimately trying to win both of them and get yourself to at least 5-7 to where you're not saying, okay, now you've set a new low bar for what the worst record is in the Beamer era. You're just tying what you did 2 years ago, though still missing a bowl game. We'll come back, wrap up the hour. When's the last time South Carolina played Coastal and what happened? We'll take a look at that coming up next to wrap up the hour. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you, wrapping up the hour here on your Thursday. Typically on Thursdays, we rewind to the last time South Carolina played said opponent, which most of the games this year, it was just a season ago because all the SEC opponents were the exact same. Will be the same case with Clemson coming up next week. Can y'all tell me the last year that South Carolina played Coastal? Anybody remember?
Wasn't it like 2018?
It was 2018.
Yeah.
Carolina won 49-15.
I think that was the opener.
That was the opener. Only the second time they had played. Do we know the first time they had played? Anybody remember?
That was the, wasn't that 13?
That was 13. Do you remember the final score?
Yeah, 70-10.
70-10.
Yeah, that was the game. We talked about it earlier in the season. That was the game. I mean, the humidity, if it's possible for 200% humidity, that's what it was.
Oof.
I mean, people were like, I'm not trying to like be funny or sarcastic about, like, people were falling out, and like you kept hearing over the loudspeaker Dr. Number 3 because it was so hot and humid during that game. But yeah, Carolina jumped all over them in that one, 70-10.
Any thoughts?
That was the one that was that hot, dude. I remember the other one being hotter than the surface of the freaking sun.
Okay, so was it 18 that was that hot then?
Yeah, so because the 13 game would have been in November, so I don't think it would have been that steamy.
Yeah, because the other one was September. You're right, Wes. Yeah, it was 18.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Still jumped
the
all over
hottest
them.
I've ever been at a football game.
It was not only just like, wow, it's hot. It's just like,
sure,
if you just opened an oven and crawled in it and shut the door. That's what it felt like.
I'm looking here on the box score. It was noon kick, but it doesn't have the listed temperature. But noon on September 1st in Columbia, I think we can kind of put 2 and 2 together and say it was probably pretty brutal that day.
Whatever it would have said, the feels like would have been like 30 degrees more. I don't
understand.
Literally.
Feels like temperature. If it feels like it, doesn't mean that's what it is. Why can't we just call it that? If it feels like 110, well, guess what? It's 110. Crazy.
It's scientifically 99. It feels like,
I guess,
120.
I'm gonna give you guys an impromptu trivia question. You ready?
Ooh, probably not, but we'll make a run at it. 2013
game that Carolina won 70-10. Can you tell me the 5 quarterbacks that threw a pass in that game?
Oh, my God.
Whoa.
We're going to go down the rabbit hole of naming dudes here. 5 quarterbacks that threw a pass in that game.
Well, Dylan Thompson had to be one of them.
Dylan Thompson was one of them. 8 of 11, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Connor Shaw.
Connor Shaw, also 8 of 11, 115, 1 touchdown.
These are all truly quarterbacks?
These are all truly quarterbacks. At least at the time, they were all quarterbacks, if that gives you a hint on one.
Oh. Was Reed McCollum on that team?
He may have been. He did not throw a pass that day.
Okay. Yeah, I think Reed was earlier, Wes. Little earlier. I think Reed was in the recruiting class of like 08 or something. So, geez, man, I'm like blanking.
One of them we've had on the show before.
Yeah, so Perry Orth was on that team, right?
Perry Orth did throw one pass.
One pass for Perry.
One pass.
Did he
Perry.
complete it?
Yes, he was 1 of 1 for 5 yards.
Yeah, Perry.
That's amazing.
That a boy.
Texas A&M game legend Perry Orth.
That's right.
Holy cow, man!
2 more guys.
This is not great radio, but fully realize.
Really making you go in your bag of memory here.
God.
Connor Mitch.
No, Connor Mitch.
So Connor Mitch was in that recruiting class, so he was on the team.
Was Brendan Nosovich one of them?
Brendan Nosovich was one of them.
Good one.
Said guys that were, at least at the time, quarterbacks.
Yes. He ended up doing some different things.
One more. Can you guys get this one?
Oh, my goodness.
God.
No.
If we were not on the radio right now,
yeah, we would
refuse to let you tell me.
Yeah.
Okay. Until you figured it out.
I just can't do that to the people. Just tell us, Tyler.
Austin Hales.
All right.
Attempted his only 2 passes of his Carolina career that day. Completed one of them for 14 yards.
14 yards. Okay.
14 yards.
You know, I no disrespect to Austin Hills, if you're listening. I kind of pride myself on even if I don't remember a guy, if you tell me that guy, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Don't have memory of Austin Hills.
Truly don't remember. Wes, do you remember Austin Hills?
No.
Okay.
I'm looking him up right now.
Tyler made that up. That's a made-up name. In person.
Then it's made up on the box score. Then I'm assuming he would have been a walk-on. Then
Correct.
Yes.
Yes,
But
walk-on
I
quarterback.
vaguely remember the name. I don't remember anything about him.
Well, he made his one career appearance for South Carolina that day. One of two for 14 yards.
Shout out Austin Hales.
Austin Hales, wherever you are now, shout out to you.
Yes.
Coastal Carolina game legend, Austin Hales.
Hey, you hope on Saturday that you can roll out.
Listen, I hope
We need a Jimmy Francis.
If we can get my wife, I've introduced her to the concept of Eli Sparkman in basketball games being the sign that the game is over.
Yeah.
If we can get to Jimmy Francis on Saturday, not injury related, we'll be doing good.
Yeah. Human victory cigar.
That's right. We'll talk about that more
you got
tomorrow.
that box score up, Tyler?
Yeah, what's up?
How many yards total did South Carolina have?
Oh, God. Hold on. Times
About
of the
600?
essence. Come on. 10 seconds. Let's see. 287 on the ground, 352, or 287 in the air, 352 on the ground.
Whew.
It's a lot. We'll talk about it more tomorrow.
Yeah.
Gamecock Central Takeover.